Welcome to the Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur Podcast presented by Boss Girl Creative. This is episode number 437. Today, I am sharing advice for my fellow creatives. Now let's dive in.
Have you already found business success but feel lonely at the top? Or do you feel like you're at a place in your business where others just don't get it? Or maybe you feel like you have to make yourself smaller in order for others to not feel less than. Or maybe just a little bit of all three? But with all that said, there is good news because I've been there and I see you, sister. I'm Taylor Bradford, the torchbearer of this podcast and sisterhood, and I'm here to lead and inspire you to stay purposely aligned in the success you have found and provide you with support, guidance, and a sisterhood to keep going. Because I do get it. Your business journey isn't meant to be traveled alone. So grab a notebook, your favorite pen, and a bevy, and let's dive into this together with this latest podcast episode. Welcome to the Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur Podcast presented by Boss Girl Creative and me.
Hello, welcome to this episode of the Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Taylor Bradford. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I am sharing some advice for my fellow creatives, you, the listener of this show. But before I dive in, let's check out this week's social media headlines. Social media headline number 1, TikTok is experimenting with 15-minute long uploads. To be continued. Social media headline number 2, Instagram adds polls in comment streams on feed posts and reels. Polls have proven to be a popular option for eliciting audience engagement. Social media headline number 3, X's latest experiment, which is formerly known as Twitter, will charge new users $1 to engage in its app. X is looking to charge all new users as part of its expanding efforts to combat bot armies. And the final social media headline for this week, LinkedIn expands profile verification to more users. LinkedIn's aiming to verify 100 million members by 2025. And that wraps up this week's social media headlines. Okay, so let's dive into some advice for my fellow creatives. So Sugar Creek officially is celebrating its 9th birthday this month. I cannot believe we're at number 9, and I cannot believe next year in October will be number 10. You better believe there will be a big bash to celebrate number 10 because, oh man, it has been a journey to get this far, and what a celebration to have next year. We kind of celebrated while we were down in Round Top this past week, and it was fun. And the journey that has been Sugar Creek has been a bumpy one for sure. And but some really, really great opportunities have happened and come down the pipeline. And it's kind of what has spurred this week's episode, which is a look back to when I did an episode similar to this, who knows how long ago, but I wrote a letter to my fellow creatives giving advice, and I felt like this is a great time since I'm reminiscing on Sugar Creek's birthday, you know, all the things that has happened with Sugar Creek, and why not go back and revisit some of those things that I talked about. Again, I don't know when I wrote this letter to my fellow creatives, but anyways, I found it in one of my notebooks, and here we are. And I'm ready to riff off of some of that advice and to kind of expand because, a lot has happened since I last wrote this advice. So let's dive into it. Number 1, be open to new and unexpected growth. And I feel like I've talked about this particular story in the past. And if I have, fast forward, if you haven't heard this story, I want to share this story because it is powerful. So Sugar Creek had been an eclectic mix of things. It really leaned boho with a tad of mid-century modern, but mostly all vintage until I found a vintage leather Chesterfield sofa. So we're in 2023 right now, October 23. Actually, I'm recording this on 10/23/23. In the spring of 22 is when I bought my first leather Chesterfield. I had a leather sofa in my inventory. We named it Fenwick, but it was mid-century. It had a tufted back, but it was definitely modern looking, mid-century style. And so I bought Frederick, that's what we named him, our first vintage Chesterfield leather couch or sofa. And I was really excited because I can't tell you how long I'd actually been hunting for one that was in a price range that made sense for me. Because in my business, I want to make an investment into a piece where I can get my money back within 1 to 2 rents, 3 rents at the max. And so investing into leather is a bigger leap for me because it will take more rents to get my money back because of the level of investment that you have to make into leather pieces, especially vintage. Now, obviously, I'm not paying retail. Some of these things that retail much higher than a vintage price is fetching. But still, in my world where I had aimed, at that point, I hadn't hit 8 years yet. I was 7.5 years in, and I bought this piece, and it was going to take me more than 3 rents to get my money back. So move forward in 22, and it was about September of 22 when I received an email, and they were looking for 2 lounge suites for a corporate event in October or November. I don't remember the actual date. And they loved the Frederick sofa and they loved the Fenwick sofa, and they wanted me to design 2 lounges around those 2 sofas. And their vibe was Western Ranch, Texas meets Montana. And, in 22, Yellowstone was really big. We had just had 1883 shoot in the Fort Worth area, and all of those are Taylor Sheridan's projects. Taylor Sheridan lives in the DFW Metroplex. His ranch is here, and he tries to do most of his shooting here in Texas when he can. And so that was on the forefront of a lot of people's minds and conversations, and really boosted Fort Worth as a town. And just, I don't know, like people just enveloped that culture and the Western way of life. And so I was excited because the Frederick was my first vintage leather Chesterfield sofa, but I wasn't thinking about Western when I bought him. I just wanted a Chesterfield. I thought that would be a great staple to have in my inventory. And so anyways, here we are talking about 2 lounges for a corporate event, and they gave me the vibe, and I was like, okay, so this is what I have, this is what I can do, and we created them. But I was like, I'm about to be on a buying trip down to Round Top. Let me reach out to the guy I bought this sofa from, and let me see if I can find out what he's bringing, and if he's got some cool pieces, I'm willing to make the investment, and then you can have a much larger selection of leather pieces to build these 2 lounges from. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, what are you bringing? So he sent me screenshots of everything, and I basically put a mood board together and sent it back to this client. And again, I didn't know who I was talking to at the time. And so after sending, what I might be interested in buying, and then signing an NDA, and then being told it is for Yellowstone, it is for Paramount and their season 5 VIP premiere party, which I can now talk about. I couldn't then. I was like, oh my gosh, I have an opportunity. So yes, I'm going to go invest in some more pieces because I want to knock this out of the park. This is such a huge moment for me in Sugar Creek. And so I decided on what I was going to buy and got it bought. Actually sent my husband down. He legitimately nearly got stuck in the mud. It rained. He showed up at 5:30 in the morning. My friends to this day, my friends that I buy from down in Round Top, some of them are from Nashville, the others are from Pennsylvania, and this is like an epic customer tale that they will never forget, because my husband's knocking on their RV at 5:30 in the morning wanting to pick up my leather pieces, and I'm like, babe, you could have waited. But anyways, long story, he was in the area staying with his family, and he was like, you know what, I can't sleep, so I'm going to go ahead and go. And anyways, woke them up, nearly got stuck. Had a farmer help him get out, and I came back with all the pieces that I bought. And what's funny about that is that I wasn't down there yet. I sent him down there early before my trip was actually scheduled, my Airbnb and all of that. So he brings the pieces back. They're amazing. I got them photographed. I send them off. They send them to Paramount, and Paramount's like, we want all of it. So we went from 2 lounges to 6 lounges, and I was so ecstatic, and just kind of the rest is history. But it started with one sofa. And how powerful is that? It takes one domino, one chess move, one piece to be the thing that just takes you to the next stratosphere. And from Yellowstone, I had the opportunity to work with Ed Sheeran. I had the opportunity to plan, design, style a 300-person private festival with Willie Nelson headlining. I just got an opportunity to work with Wingstop. If you're in the South, that is a wing restaurant, chicken wing restaurant. It is literally dominoed. This one sofa has dominoed me into some killer corporate events. Now, has it been easy? Oh my gosh, the stories I could tell about these experiences. But at the end of the day, I survived, and I'm here on the other side to tell the tales. And I just want you to remember to be open to new and unexpected growth, because I never would have dreamed of the things that have come my way because of one sofa. And I really dug in. Obviously, I still have a large chunk of my inventory that is not Western inspired, but you better believe that I absolutely dug in with that Western inspired aesthetic. And I am not kidding when I say that is what's landing these big corporate gigs into my inbox. They are finding my Western inspired collection. They are finding my leather furniture, and it is the greatest feeling in the world. And it took one sofa. Number 2, be patient. Listen, 7.5 years, that's a lot of patience. And I felt like even up to that 7.5 year mark, I almost got to 8 years before all of that started. But that 7.5 year mark, I had cool experiences, but nothing like what I have had happen since the purchase of that sofa. You absolutely have to be patient. You have to be dialed in. You have to be intentional. You have to be purposeful of why you do things, why your business runs the way it does. That has been my number one key strategy since the very beginning of Sugar Creek, because I wanted to be able to get to where I'm at now. And you can't get there without being intentional. You can't get there without being purposeful. And then it takes that one key moment, and you don't know what that key moment is, but as long as your foundation is solid based on intention and purpose and understanding why you're doing what you're doing and what you're doing and who your ideal customer is, all things that I actively describe in my book. Shout out for my book, Pillars and Purpose, How to Build a Business That Works for You. You want to grab a copy, go to bossgirlcreative.com/pillars book. That's pillars with an S book to snag a copy. You can get a Kindle version and you can get a print version. And I promise you, this is how I've been able to do this with Sugar Creek. This year alone in 23, I think my gross right now is sitting right under $500,000 gross. Now that's not my net. Obviously, I would love to be able to say that is my net, but it is the largest year that I've had. And this didn't include Yellowstone. It's just mind blowing what one thing can do for you, that one thing. And I need you to be patient. I need you to stay patient through challenges, through ups, through downs, through it all. Because it will happen as long as you have that strong foundation built underneath you. Number 3, I want you to stay true to who you are. Because the moment that you try on somebody else's costume and pretend to be that person or try to do it that person's way will just set you backwards. You really do have to stay true to yourself. And I'm not saying that I didn't explore other things as I bought new pieces into my inventory, but I ultimately was still staying in the bubble of what is the tailored collection, what makes sense as a whole. If I add this thing, what other things can pair with it so that it's not an eyesore, it's not standing out by itself and nobody will rent that thing. And I've also realized in the 9 years that I've been doing this, that I've seen a shift in what gets rented and what doesn't get rented. Like right now, my backdrops, I can't tell you the last time a backdrop went out on a rental. It is my lounge furniture that is actually going out on rentals. It's my farm tables that are going out, my crossback chairs. So one of the next purchases that I would really love to add, which is another big commitment from me, is another set of chairs, which I would really love to add a wooden bentwood chair into my collection. I think it also, if I'm thinking long term for wedding venue, that it will be a great staple to have for the wedding venue. So I might as well go ahead and get it added into my collection now so I can get some use out of them, get them paid for by rentals, etc. But ultimately, everything I've done, I've had to stay patient. I knew my time was coming. I knew something would eventually click. I just needed the opportunity and I needed to make an investment. And I did. And again, it goes back to that sofa. Be true to who you are, because you are the thing that people are purchasing. You and what you create. You and the ideas that you have. Now, even if you have a team, you're still the driver of your ship. You are still the captain of your ship, and you are doing the delegating, and you are making sure that the brand messaging is still exactly how you want it to be and what you want it to say. Be true to who you are. Tip number 4, believe in yourself. I never once, ever challenged myself in a way where I didn't believe in myself. I have always believed in myself. I've always had the confidence to know, you know what? One of these days I'm going to get an opportunity and I'm going to nail it. And I have to share this story. When I was in high school, I was active in drama. So my high school was 10, 11, and 12. And my sophomore year, we did 2 musicals, and I think I helped out with lighting on A Few Good Men. And then my junior year, we did 2 musicals. And my senior year, I believe we did 2 musicals. But by my senior year, I was like, I want a lead role. I feel like I have given my all to this department. I was also actively in choir, and I was in 2 choirs my senior year. I was in 2 choirs my junior year. And I honestly was going to be a vocal performing major in college, and then had an epiphany when I was a senior in high school. Anyways, a different story. But I so badly wanted a lead role and felt that every time I tried out that I wasn't being given the opportunity, and I just needed somebody to trust me. I just needed somebody to give me a chance. And I went to my drama teacher and I said, listen, I want this role so badly. I wanted the role of Grace Farrell. We did Annie. And I said, you're going to have to trust me. Please trust me. I will knock this role out of the park, but I need you to give me a chance. She gave me that chance. I knocked it out of the park. It was the best role I could have ever had for myself in theater at the time. And that's kind of how I felt, even with Sugar Creek. I just need one corporate gig to give me a chance to show off what it is that I'm really good at doing. I'm really good at creating experiences. I'm really good at making you feel like this was intentional, this was purposeful, down to the very nitty-gritty detail of me having diffusers in the lounges, having room spray sprayed on the pillows. Like, I wanted you to feel like every bit and piece was intentional, because it always is and always has been. Because I believed in myself. I need you to believe in yourself. Tip number 5, I don't want you to ever give up. I have legitimately never given up. I was given an ultimatum by my husband a couple years ago. He's like, you've got a total of 5 years total. I'm giving you an opportunity of 5 years. And if this is still a hobby, then we're pivoting and we're doing something else. And actually, my mother-in-law brought that up to me recently. She was like, didn't he give you like 2 more years? And I'm like, yeah, but I never really believed any of that, because I believed in myself. I knew I could do it. I just knew I just needed one thing. And I actually had the momentum leading into 2020. But then, of course, COVID had other plans for everybody. And so it took me a bit to get back up on my feet. And then look at me now. Now I just want to be at the top of the mountain and scream, look at me now. Like, I have stayed true to myself, and I have stayed holding belief in myself. And that is a game changer for you, to believe in yourself and to never give up. Don't ever give up. Unless, listen, there is a time to hang up your hat, and there's a time to keep pushing, and you're going to know where those points are. But don't give up. Keep going, unless the signs all point to you pivoting. And then finally, choose what feels right every time. Trust yourself to know. Use your why and your core values to guide you even through the rough patches, because you are going to have rough patches. I have had rough patches. I can tell you, last weekend, actually weekend before last, was a 24-hour workday for me. Did I ever think to myself, yes, Taylor, in 2 weeks' time, you are going to be working a solid 24 hours, and then you're going to get 2.5 hours of sleep before you have a meeting with your accountant to go over what you owe the U.S. government for your taxes? No, I never had that conversation with myself. But you keep going, you persevere. These are the parts of business that aren't fun. Staying up 24 hours, working 17 and a half of them, schlepping furniture, isn't fun. But at the end of the day, the reward of what we made, the experience, being able to say, you know what, we will do this different. Honestly, with that particular event, I don't know that we could have done anything different, even if I'd had double my staff. There were 5 of us working that event. And what we were bringing in collectively didn't need more than 5 people, but to be hung up at a single elevator, and then the length of the walk between where the event was and where we were loading out and where we were on the street, a whole different story. But I don't think having even 10 people working that we could have done it any faster than we did with 5. So anyways, but choose what feels right every time, because having trust in yourself will go a long, long way to when you say yes and when you say no, even when there are rough patches in between. And I lied. There's one more. Don't show up with anything less than 110%. And I realize you can't give that actual 10% over 100, but Mindset. Mindset is everything. I don't want you to ever show up with a 50% mindset. I need you to always show up with a 100% mindset, because that is what will propel you to the next thing. I promise. The moment that you basically half-ass what you're doing, it is going to be a reflection of everything. It is going to be a reflection of you, a reflection of your team, a reflection of the service that you provide. So I need you to check yourself. Every moment that you start feeling like you're slipping down to 99%, and find the mindset to get you back to 100, because it matters. It absolutely matters. I hope that these nuggets are inspirational to you, and that you will either take them in, write them down, share them with your business bestie, because I promise you, 9 years ago, I couldn't dream the opportunities that have shown up for Sugar Creek. And it's because I've stayed true to myself. I've shown up for myself. I have believed in myself. I have never given up on what I knew could be true for me and what it is that I offer. I just needed that one thing. And for me, that one thing is Frederick, my Chesterfield. And without him, I wouldn't be having these conversations with you about all of these things right now, because it took him. And I know I've named him as a male, but it took him to get me to here. It's one thing, but it takes that foundation for you to be able to keep propelling forward. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I hope you found it inspirational. And until next time, I hope you have a great rest of this week.
Oh, wait, before I go, thank you truly for your support of my own business journey and this podcast, The Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur. If you know another entrepreneur who is in the same business trenches, who has already found success but might be feeling a bit lonely in their journey, my hope is that you'll share this podcast and this sisterhood with them. Because this, what we do day in and day out, isn't meant to be done alone. Speaking of lonely, if you're ready to squash the business journey loneliness, stop what you're doing right now and join the sisterhood. Visit bossgirlcreative.com/sisterhood. I can't wait to see you in there.